Hi, welcome to the next lecture. Hopefully the proportion of lectures to work days is a good proportion for you. Let's just get to it. Let's start learning how we can put our pictures together into a stop motion video using Photoshop. We're in Adobe Bridge. Adobe Bridge is a really great program. I use it constantly as a library organization system for my image files. I have such an arsenal of images that I really need to work on making sure that they're organized, and Bridge is a really easy way to work with that, whether it's making batch edits, moving things, retitling things, resizing things, or what we'll be using it for, which is importing the images into Photoshop in order to outsource them, export them as a stop motion. The first thing I want to show you is the Camera Raw menu. The Camera Raw menu, if you select these and you right click, you can see here it says open in Camera Raw. So we're going to let that run open. It'll load all of our images. The Camera Raw menu is a really essential feature to shooting with a DSLR. I personally shoot in RAW. I don't shoot in JPEG with my personal DSLR camera, my Canon. Excuse me, the RAW menu really allows you to work a lot with the pixels as they are without compromising the integrity of your image. Although we are not shooting in RAW, these are just images from my cell phone, we can still open JPEGs and other files in the RAW menu to try to get the same benefits that RAW menu changes can make. You can see here that I've already made some changes to the white balance. I really increased my shadows. I thought it was really dark. Dehaze and clarity. I'm not going to go through this entire panel, but I do want you to personally experiment with it. Honestly, even if I'm using a cell phone picture that I'm sending somewhere for something, I'll modify it mildly in the Camera Raw menu because you can totally change a picture and make it for the best. So look at this basic menu here, and if you want, of course, detail is for sharpening. You can see I've done that already. If we were to make changes, for the sake of time, I already have, but if we were to make changes to these, let's say I made changes to this image and I want to apply it to the rest of them, you can, of course, Command A or Shift and hold down. And you can see this ellipsis icon here that implies that there's a hidden menu. So I will select that, and you can see that one of the options are Sync Settings. A menu will pop up and you will see exactly what settings are being synced across all of your file types here. You can see that crop, spot removal, local adjustments. There are some brush adjustments and spot removal adjustments similar to Lightroom through the raw menu that you can also apply through all of them if you're able to do that. It depends on how much you're moving your camera around, but you can see here that these are the initial ones that are selected, and you can push either OK or not. I have already done this change, so for sake of time, again, I'm just going to move on to the next part here. But that's how you would sync your image edits, so that way maybe all of your JPEGs from your cell phone is just a little more balanced. Now I'm going to open this in Photoshop. Right beforehand, you can see in this drop-down menu, for the tools drop-down menu, you can see that they have Premiere, Illustrator, and Photoshop, both as all as options that you can open through Bridge. Really nice connection between the Adobe software that makes it really easy for them to navigate between each other. You can see that under Photoshop, batch is one of the options. If you are at a point in your life where you're working with advanced action edits, you would record an action and you can batch a selection of photos to that action. Let's say if you're changing the white balance and the contrast and you just want to batch them all at the same adjustment layers, you can do that through batching. Contact sheet is a way that I personally send material to clients. If, let's say, I'm doing a shoot in a space, let's say I'm shooting an exhibition in a museum or a gallery, and perhaps the client would want to select the pictures that they would have, I would send them the appropriate files out in a contact sheet, which essentially puts multiple images onto one page with their title. So maybe one 8x10 would have 12 images on it, and they can look at that to select the pictures that they want. Image processor is what you would use if you needed to compress your pictures. Some of you might have a cell phone, honestly, that's taking files that are really, really large, which will just take forever for them to import and or export out of Photoshop. So you might want to compress your images in the image processor to a lower quality from 12 in order to save yourself some time. You can see here you can select the location it's saving in. You can also change the file format to a TIFF and what have you. And what we're going to be using the Photoshop tool here for is to load the files into Photoshop layers. So what this is going to do is open an untitled workspace here, and it's going to import all of those images as layers, and then we can convert those into frames. I'm going to fast forward to the next part here because it's going to take a while to import these. Just have loaded into Photoshop. We can start working with our layers in order to make our stop motion. So the first thing we need is to open the timeline panel in Photoshop. The timeline panel is for working for moving images, right? Images that will take any time, from a GIF to a video, right? Stop motion, like what we're doing. So first we're going to open the timeline panel, and we're going to be able to start to get this done. So you can see here that in this drop-down menu, there are two options: video timeline and frame animation. That's us, so we're gonna click that button. And the next thing we're going to do, again, very simple. We're going to use, we're going to navigate to this hamburger icon over here. It's implying that there's a hidden menu. And we are going to select Make Frames from Layers. And you will see that we will get all of our frames laid out here for us. But you will notice if I play it, it's going backwards. So, and that's always how it will be. The newest file will be the first one to load. So we are going to easily open this menu again and just select reverse frames. And now you can see that my chapstick is marching to the end of the desk and throwing himself off there. Okay, so now that I am happy with my video here, we could always, of course, select these and make them a little longer. You can see here that the duration of my image is of no time. So perhaps we can change that to make it just a little bit longer. So I will select all of my images, and I'm just going to put it up to 0.1 seconds, and now it'll be a little bit more stop motion-y. Okay, and then we're going to export this. So you do that by going to File, Export, Render Video. Great, so we're going to always keep this as document frame rate. I'm going to title this Stop Motion No Audio, because I do want to add audio. You can see here I have my format is H264. You can also do it as a QuickTime, but this is usually how I will export it. I know it will work. I have it to the size of the document here, but I do want to bring it down to a smaller size, just 1080 at 29:9. So I'm going to use 1080p at 29. Okay, so I'm going to select this option here. And I'm going to make this custom to make this 1440 by 1080 because I want to make sure that my image is vertically longer. Otherwise, I'll have black bars on the side of my image if it's backwards. And then we do want to keep our frame rate at document frame rate, and you'll see that'll go up to 30 frames per second, which is pretty normal. And we're going to be doing this through the Adobe Media Encoder, and I'm going to push render. Again, like I mentioned before, some of you guys really have to give your computers time to upload these, to export them, to import them. You're working with hundreds of pictures, so make sure that you give your computer time to do that because it might take a while to process them. You might even need overnight depending on how quick your processing power is on your computer. So I'm going to let this render out and then we will get back to it. So our video has exported and you can see here that this is what we have so far. So we got our little guy marching off to the edge there. Okay. And what I want to do now is add a little bit of audio to this. So I'm going to open that in Photoshop as well. And we are going to be looking for our video here. Okay. So mine's pretty short. It's only 3 seconds. And now we have our video imported so that we can start adding a little bit of audio to it. The first thing we're going to do is I want to make this a little bit bigger to work with a little bit more of the timeline. It makes it a little easier to use. And I'm going to put in my first audio track here. So all I'm doing is clicking this down drop and selecting add audio. And I should have audio in here. We're going to start with our drum roll. And I'm going to measure it out to be a little bit shorter so that I can work with the actual length of the video time here. I'm going to play my video and decide when I would want my drum roll to stop, which will be when my chapstick jumps off the desk. So it'll be about here that I would want him to have my second sound effect. So I'm going to keep shortening this just a touch in order to align that. I want to do it from the front, not the end, because I want to hear the end of the drum roll as opposed to shortening the front of that. Okay, so that'll work. Now we have a basic drum roll before he jumps off. And then I want to add one more audio track here. So we're going to have new audio track here from this drop-down menu. I'm going to click the drop-down menu again on the second one, add audio. And we're going to add our secondary sound effect here, which is the sound of falling. All right. So again, I'm going to probably line it up to about here when the falling sound will start. It looks like it's pretty long, so let's just shorten that just a touch. Okay. And I'm just going to mess with the front and back of this to try to have an overlap that makes some sense. And we can see what that sounds like. So I think that might work. Let's hear it. Great. And then the only other thing I want to do is if I right click on this audio track here, I can increase some fade out there so that I could make it sound a little bit more like it's falling down. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did originally. We're going to go to File, Export, Render Video. We're going to match all the settings that we originally had. I'm going to put with audio in my file type so that nothing's being overwritten here. And we'll render it again. Remember, this really might take some time. So we'll render it and then we'll get back to the final video because I'm going to stop my recording so that this can get done. So now in my folder in Bridge, you can see our two new files here. And here's our newest version of my 3-second stop motion. Oh, that's without audio. Let's do the one with audio. Here we go. All right. So you can choose to add as much or as little audio as you want. Nothing also, if that's a choice for you. And like I said many times during this lecture, you're working with many, many photographs, so make sure that you give your computer enough time to process it. The computers in the lab on campus also process
your pictures nice and quick if you need to go out there.
Okay, so that about does it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or reach out on Canvas. And I hope that this is pretty easy for you guys and you make something really cool. I'm really excited to see what you do. Thanks.